Welcome everyone to the mid-league quarterfinals. Just about time to get into the action, but beforehand, we got a bit of analysis to do. I have scrounged up the best team I could put together: Gungeon, Camcom, Matt Dewey, and Metapods here to break it down. And we got a little bit of a road trip to go on. But before we go and have our adventure, we have to wave our goodbyes to Shadowblade Slash, DAO, Elventus. They couldn't make it here tonight, but instead we have a banger double header coming at you in the later parts of the evening. But before we get there, we have a meta market to go to with some changes in the intro. But before we get there, team, would you like to introduce yourselves? Maybe Metapods, you first, potentially, telling us about where you come from.
Hi, I'm Metapods Manatee. I played support for Shadowblade Slash. Unfortunately, we did get knocked out, but we had a good time.
Okay, I love to hear it. Mac Dewey, Camcom, Gungeon, obviously, audience familiar with you all three analysts. Anything you want to say before we get started tonight?
I'm a reformed AD carry main that's switching over to auction soon enough. I think that Riot's made the perfect champion for me, and I can't wait to take Heavy League next year as a player in the mid lane. What a swap, everybody! What a swap.
Akshan, a mid laner? Is that what we're hearing now? Is that where he's
I believe so.
I don't know.
You can go wherever you want, honestly.
All right.
Hey, I've seen one tricks make it.
We've already gotten the hot takes from Gungeon so far. Camcom, Mac Dewey, glad to have you back. Obviously, not my first time working with you two. Excited to see what we can have happen tonight. Let's get straight into it, though, gentlemen. Meta market 7:45 would be the time, just about, until we have to wrap things up. But 11:13 takes a lot of time to break down, comes with a hefty amount of changes. Let's start with you, Gungeon. Anything you want to cover in particular as we head into the evening?
So the big thing I really want to break down, again, I am a soon-to-be mid laner, but I still have biases in the bot lane, and AD carry, kind of the rise of the changing of AD carries. We've seen in mid-league this year, especially due to players like Macro Beast, mages have come down to the bot lane. They've really taken over with champions like Swain, with champions like Ziggs being incredibly popular. But the champion I really want to talk about, and he's actually on top of the meta market right now, is Aphelios, and to a smaller degree, maybe champions like the Jinx. These champions have kind of been underplayed in the bot lane. We were in kind of that Kai'Sa Tristana meta, but due to kind of the recent changes, the nerfs to those champions, I feel like in the bot lane, those champions are incredibly strong. Aphelios offers a lot of CC, a massive damage spike. The only thing is, though, he needs to be paired up with supports like the Braum, like the Thresh, which we've seen teams like No Fear Wolves already do. So I'm excited to see what the bot lane changes are, because I think that immobile AD carries with the pairing of a kind of supporty style, kind of keep you alive champion like Thresh and Braum are going to really see popularity bot lane, because the amount of damage that you can deal with the Aphelios, now you get lethality second max. You can deal a ton of damage and just absolutely obliterate teams. So I'm excited to see what the bot lane changes are when mid league is so stacked with just epic bot laners like Evilzar and Epic Fail Guy.
Sad I can't give points out to everyone, because you're speaking right to my heart here, Aphelios, me and myself. Camcom will go to you next. We'll keep it going down the line. 11:13. Any particular thoughts you want to head for us?
Yeah, I'm sticking right there in the bot lane, but the other more important role I do have to say is the supports.
Not important.
Now, supports, they got a secret buff on 11.13 with the 200 gold buff to Liandry's, to Everfrost, and to Riftmaker, where you can now buy those items on the main supports, such as Zyra and Brandon, maybe even Lux if you want to go a little bit more spicy, but mostly Zyra and Brand, where get 200 gold cheaper if you are also opting for a futures market. That is almost 2 to 3 minutes earlier for a mythic on a support, which when you're already getting them a little late, sometimes around 15 to 18 minutes, having that 2 to 3 minutes earlier gets you about the same time as your ADC and even a jungler level. So having a such early mythic for support, especially one that's going to be doing so much damage, is definitely very impactful and definitely changed the meta a little bit there in the bot lane.
All right, good to hear. Both bot lane positions covered. Mac Dewey, hopefully you got something else for me outside of the bot lane. Let's hear what you got to say about 11:13.
Necrox, always, man. As we're all paired up together in the Excellency van, taking our road to the playoffs before the quarterfinals get started here, I'm going to be focusing my attention on the opposite side of the rift. Looking up at that top lane, Hole Breaker, I wonder how big of an impact it's going to make in our playoffs here. We've got some absolute studs in the top lane. Stubby playing tonight, Rutledge awaiting anyone in the semifinals. They love to carry. I'm really excited to see what exactly they're going to be bringing up to the plate after what mostly during the regular season I feel like was a more team fight focused top lane meta. Are we going to start seeing some solo diffs come through? I believe we saw some Fiora before during the regular season and some other picks. Maybe something like Jax could pop up with Divine Sunder being still pretty strong on melees, although rip Ezreal. So I'm excited to see what our top laners are going to be bringing during the quarterfinals.
All right, we've got bottom, we got top Metapods. Let's hear it somewhere in the middle, maybe. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I'm excited to hear what analysis you have for us on this patch.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and as everyone knows, Shadowblade Slash only one using cheese, obviously. So there's a few strategies I want to highlight here. Nocturne hasn't been nerfed yet. Striper hasn't been nerfed yet. You turn the lights off, ult on him, they can't move. Not even an Ezreal can get away from that. You just flash follow, he's dead, even with all of his dashes and blinks. The other one, we mentioned mages in the bot lane earlier. Shadowblade Slash somehow managed to take a game off of No Fear Wolves with it even. You play the Swain, you pair any other tank support with it, they're CC'd forever. We played Annie Leona against DAO. And I remember asking during the game how long we CC'd their Karma for. It was like Leona ult into Tibbers stun, into Leona root, into Leona stun. And then I got a message after the game. I thought he forgot about it. He just sends me 4.1 seconds. 4.1 seconds. No one will survive. I'm excited to see what we'll see, though. And I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Thank you, Metapod, once again for joining us. And it is time to take our next stop as we get closer and closer to the quarterfinals. Mount Rushmore, here we go. CB and DCA are first and second place teams. Bias teams to avoid. I'm going to open it up for discussion. Take it away.
I'm excited. Again, this is a hot take. I think DCA took kind of like that last storm up. They kind of stole second from my boys, No Fear Wolves. Not biased, though. Not biased. But in terms of playoffs matchup, I'm excited to see kind of what the matchups are because, again, CB Rush, dominant roster, 4 players winning all pro first team. Prayers up for debate as everyone's been spamming in mid-league chat. But I think that they can be exploited, especially in that bot side. I think that we've seen, again, a rising of these strong AD carry picks. And I think that especially going into the next round, I don't believe it can happen. But if No Fear Wolves end up making it out from the DGen's No Fear Wolves series, that's kind of a roster where CB's kind of saying, oh, thank God we avoid that. Because I think that that is a roster that can really exploit them in that bot side. So depending on who ends up making it out, there is Evil Czar, there is Mob 5 as well on the other side. So whichever one of those teams end up making it out, I think that can really attack that bot side and maybe add some more global map pressure with champions like the Nocturne and Galio kind of coming in and really just 4-man diving that bot lane. I think that CB Rush can struggle. For DCA, though, I think that we've seen kind of just a massive melding of that team. I think that it's been playing on all cylinders. I think Fugnuggler's been playing incredibly well. So I don't know who really matches up well against them, but for the side of CB Rush, I think any bot lane that can really put pressure and heat down there can succeed.
And looking honestly at overall how these two teams made it happen, Death Cards Academy notably 2-1ing a whole heck of a lot of teams that are currently in the playoff picture. Necrox, I'm going to be looking at specifically how well they're going to transition to best of 5. Are they going to be able to close out series when the going gets tough and things get really close? How is Sterling Jones going to hold up in the jungle, or Sterling Archer, excuse me. I always get him and Patrick Jones mixed together because they play so darn well together. I'm excited to see how the dynamic duo, if they're able to flourish in the playoffs, if they're able to pop off and potentially punch their tickets to playoffs, because I think it is absolutely huge to avoid CB Rush. It's a lot easier road to the finals, and you're looking at them as the favorites to take over and dominate the playoffs, to finish what they started last season. Rutledge is sticking around this time around. They're looking really scary, but I'm excited to see especially what Patrick Jones, Sterling, and even Galaxy Meep, as well as Uwu Cthulhu, the whole roster, Fugnuggler in the top lane, Necrox. I'm just so excited that Death Cards are in the playoffs and making it work.
Yeah, I'm apparently now famous for predicting Death Card second through like week 5 and on, just because.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I swear they were beating all of the high level teams. They beat the new roster of G-Gens 2-1, which is not something that a lot of teams have accomplished since then. So having that up on Degenerates, as well as beating No Fear Wolves 2-1, did they beat Fever? It was 2-1 either way, right?
Mm-hmm.
They did beat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was like they were beating all of these high level teams, and in the very end of week 9, that's what got them that tiebreaker spot. It was like, well, I wonder if they're beating these teams that are most likely going to be tying for second. If there ends up being a tiebreaker, then they're probably going to be taken second. So that is where that line of thought was coming from there. So I did not write the script. I'm sorry.
But Cam, if they only 2-1, can they 3-2? That's the real question. When we go to best
we have
of
to figure
fives,
that out now.
can they win one more game? The Kings of 2-1.
All it takes is one more. It can't be that far away. You just got to push a little bit further, but you never know. These two teams at the top of the table, looking forward to where they're going. We got one more stop, ladies and gentlemen. It is our final destination on our road trip. Here we go. It is a quarterfinals county fair. And let's begin things off with Bucky's versus Fever. Mac, we're going to be covering this one later, so I'm going to put you on the back end for now. Metapod, I want to hear from you first. Fever versus Bucky's. Give me your thoughts.
I'm super excited for this matchup because I'm pretty good friends with Macrobeast down in the bot lane. Like I said, he started playing mages and I stole it from him. And I want to see how Evil Zara is able to handle the kind of pressure that stuff puts out. They might just ban out the Swain, which that's my advice to you. Just ban his Swain, get him off it, because it's really good at disrupting what Fever wants to do and just having this crazy scaling, crazy CSing bot lane. And the Bucky's jungle array. I believe that they have a new jungler on Fever. I'm not sure who's playing tonight, but it's not a Zongi, the Trundle God. He demolished me in a game recently. It was terrifying. I want to see how this new jungler deals with all the pressure that he puts out. This should be good.
Okay. Gungeon, similar thoughts? Is it jungle difference, or are we heading somewhere else?
I think for this matchup, it's really interesting because obviously Fever kind of limping into playoffs with the swapping of their jungle and their mid lane from Jongi and Providence to now, I believe, your Mad Q and Dictator Scruff in the mid lane.
Accurate.
I think it's going to be interesting to see because they do play a style that is more centered around they have Rice being that teamfight initiator, with Zar just dealing consistent damage, Stubby making those highlight plays. But now you're kind of having to see how that jungle mid duo kind of mesh with that kind of late game scaling, let's fight later when Zar is strong. And Bucky's is an interesting matchup because Bucky's utilizes a lot of global pressure. They like playing champs like the Nocturne and Galio, and Fever actually played versus the DJs roster in week 9, and they actually struggled versus that exact comp. They struggled really hard when there was just global map pressure, basically just making it so that Zara could never scale, saying that this bot lane is never going to be a 2v2. It's going to always be a 4v2. And so if you can kind of get Zara off kilter, if you can make it so you can take away some champions from Dictator Scruff, like his Akali and his Echo, which were permabanned by a Degens in week number 9, I think that Bucky's have a good chance. But it's really interesting to see because both of these teams are kind of, again, they're 4th and 5th place, but they're both limping because Bucky's has had a kind of a struggle making into the final end of playoffs. They were 2-1 versus DAO. They were 1-2 versus the new Degens roster, and they were 1-2 versus Death Cards. So both teams have struggled coming into playoffs. So I'm excited to see what they end up putting together. But I feel like Bucky's, if they run this global pressure comp, can really make it uncomfortable for Fever.
Okay, Cam, similar opinions or difference in superlative moment here. I'm curious, actually, the last point that Gunjan brought up about the global composition. I think either team honestly could play towards this rotation, but I'm not sure. Do you think we're going to see something like the global composition come out, or are we going for the lane kingdom?
I do like the global compositions. Galio's support has actually been making a little bit of a comeback recently, as it is a very strong flex between mid and support there. So that is one of those really strong tanks, really strong map wide, like you're saying, global support. So, and another one also, Pantheon is a little bit rising in the meta as well for both mid and support, which is not something we've gotten to see really all season long. So again, if we're sticking to these global supports, Pantheon also very strong laner, very easy to land that point and click stun and have any sort of follow up, whether it's Swain or someone else. So could definitely have some of that global pressure that is hard to play against, especially if you're not ready for a TF or a Shen suddenly in your lane, and it makes your whole day go bad.
All right, Mac, Dewey, last thoughts before we go into our next matchup?
I wonder, all this talk about the global pressure, what if you just let Stubby take care of business in the top lane? I mentioned the Hull Breaker before. He doesn't even need it to take over. We've seen him pop off on Ornn, slice through teams on Kennen, and absolutely dominate lanes on Mordekaiser. I think Buckies are going to have to spend a little time in draft focusing in whittling down the top lane champion pool for Stubby. So I wonder how much of an impact he's going to be able to make. Fever 3-0'd Buckies during the regular season, and it was in huge part to him just taking over the top lane Necrox.
I'm glad you and I are paired up because we're on the same page. It's lane kingdom, win lane, win game, easy formula. Don't need any of this global pressure. Don't need to make it a 4-man bot. But we got one more matchup. It is No Fear Wolves versus DGen. We're going to go straight back through, and I'll return to you, Metapods, for your analysis. I want to hear No Fear Wolves versus DGen. What are we feeling?
It's going to be a really interesting matchup, I think, because they both have powerhouses in the AD carry. They scale up and they do a ton of damage in their fights. I did see Mob 5 drop down to Diamond 4 though recently, so might be rough for him. There might be a difference in the bot lane.
Troubling.
But I think what we're really going to see over the course of this 5-game series is that the flexibility of No Fear Wolves. Cute Raichu in the mid lane, he plays everything. Give him the Corki, he'll farm up for 20 minutes, come out of the lane with 10 CS per minute, and obliterate you at the dragon. He plays other supports. He plays the roaming mids, the assassins. He plays Sylas. It's, like, you have to ban his Sylas. It's insane. I think we're going to see a lot of fighting around the neutral objectives for this because both teams play around them pretty heavily. It should be pretty good.
Yeah, I do want to hop in here real quick and kind of talk about our mascot contest. Gunjan, this is what I came up with for our next stop here in the quarterfinals county fair here. The Skarner and Rammus, Sovereign has been blazing his way through the league on these picks, and DGens just love to play through their jungler. I expect a lot of really fun fights tonight for this really hype quarterfinals matchup.
I love it, Mac. I will say, I think for this matchup, I'm really sad that one of these teams won't be making it into the semis because both of them are super exciting to cast, because DGen's obviously having this 0-9 start, then going 10-5 and making into that 6th seed. Mm-hmm. No Fear Wolves having that stagnation in the middle of the split, and then just making the run up with Cornstar, the Cornstar addition into the top side. I'm sad that we're going to see one of these teams go. In terms of just how this matchup should break out, though, I think that it's going to be kind of on the shoulders of Mob 5 and Sovereign. Sovereign making things happen early, and then Mob 5 really getting it done later on. My fear is, though, for this roster is that you can ban out a lot of their champions, especially in that mid and top side. I like what Innovative and I like what Colbox end up playing, but a lot of times they kind of get relegated onto that Victor, Corki, let's just farm up, let's make it so that I hyperscale to the late game. But we've seen that Cute Raichu plays that self-sacrifice style where he will always just say, I'm going to lose a wave so I can roam first to these team fights. And he makes these plays happen. So if DGens end up sticking with that same style where they kind of roam a little bit later, don't make it to the play first, they're going to get punished by Cute Raichu in that mid lane. And so it's going to be a real struggle if they fall behind early, because they're a team that can definitely close you out. They don't struggle with late game decision making. I believe that from what I was told, they will be running a sub support in the first game with Fitz Chivalry, but he was the support from Spring Split. So it's not going to be like a synergy issue there. It's kind of just a champ pool style where Fitz is more about roaming and getting the team wide done, while Jushbox is more of that laning centered support that really makes sure that Epic Fail guy gets taken care of in the early game.
All right, Cam, you got the ultimate word, the final say in the No Fear Wolves versus a G-Gen matchup. Let's hear it.
Well, I'm very excited for this matchup. I don't know about you, Gungeon and Metapod, but I'm very excited. We haven't seen this matchup since week 1, which, like Gungeon said, No Fear Wolves did take 3-0, but that was the old roster. We're here with the new roster. They haven't gotten to see each other for quite a long time now. So I'm definitely expecting a very close series. If it's a 3-0, that's going to be very interesting, because neither of these teams have really gone 3-0 or 0-3 in the past few weeks against any of these top tier teams. So I'm definitely thinking it's going to be fairly close. And I'm not sure if we've mentioned this, but No Fear Wolves and Fever have already decided their side select for game 1. Both of them are selecting blue side. So there is, after game 1, the losing team will have side select. So blue side already selected by both upper teams is making me think that blue side is a little bit stronger this patch. I'm not sure if I agree. I do like the R1, R2 angle, but blue side being the priority for both of them.
I think maybe if you're going to be able to... Sorry, I just wanted to
go ahead,
point that
Go ahead, Gretchen. I don't even want to host
maybe,
this. You take it.
I was going to say, if you're maybe able to interject a pick like that Nocturne, which you've seen is so strong with the Stride Breaker, he's kind of one of those champions that says, he's so strong that blue side might just be good enough with that R1 pick. But Necrox, you have it. I'm sorry, Daddy Necrox. I didn't want to make the road to playoffs. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I don't know where that came from, Gungeon. You're a friend. But we're going to have a conversation about this. I'm getting out of here, though, in just a moment. These are where we're headed, though. Obviously, your match number 1, No Fear Wolves versus Degenerate here on this channel. The other one, though, Mac and I will be covering Fever versus Bucky's on Excellency Esports 2. We're going to dip away for just a moment when we get ready to load up on the Rift and cover our first draft of the evening. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. It is quarterfinals time here in the mid league. We'll be back in just a minute.